Chapter 1891, An Unexpected Dinner Party. King Arthur said, "Shangi, have you considered the problem?" Shangi did consider it, but he was too busy to care about what was going on in the Western Hemisphere. The world is in chaos. "Wherever you look, there's trouble," Shangi said. King Arthur said, "You're right. Every country has its secrets. Colombia is no exception." "No exception, Colombia?" "Yes. If there is a country in the world that has had contact with an underground civilization in advance and used their power to develop its own technology and military strength, it must be Colombia." Shangi bowed his head and fell into deep thought. "Anyway, you think about it. Joining the pupil organization will definitely do you no harm. We don't want you to do anything against your principles. We just want to stand on the same side when that day comes, as people who are unwilling to make any sacrifices." King Arthur smiled and patted Shangi on the shoulder. "I'm sure of it. I've always been good at judging people." Shangi nodded with a smile. "I will definitely consider your suggestion." King Arthur was very pleased with Shangi's response. He took the opportunity to make a request, "By the way, about your armor technology." Shangi said, "As long as you can come up with something of sufficient value to trade, I'll be fine with it." Liu Karen's mechanical iterations are very fast, and basically an update is made every few months. If they really had to exchange, he would give King Arthur the old armor. But for this thing, the price he would ask would be unimaginably high. King Arthur rested his chin in his hand, seemingly considering what to exchange. His expression was hesitant. Because of what he could offer, it was not convenient to give it to Shangi. That was the secret of Atlantis, the source of the Knights of the Round Table's power. "Take your time and think about it. We'll go back and think about it too. Let's keep in touch." Shangi waved goodbye to King Arthur, opened the dimensional gate, and used the space shuffle to quickly return to the Golden Front. Everyone was gathered around Fatty Sue, showering him with praise. Fatty Sue. What he needed for the Epsilon 1 battle was confidence. Seeing that Shangi had returned, Uncle Yu hurriedly pushed Fatty Sue in front of him. "Shangi, Chunlei really did well this time." Shangi nodded. "I always knew he was very good." These words were worth 1,000 words. Because they showed that Shangi had always believed in Fatty Sue's abilities. However, in the face of Fatty Sue's expectant gaze, Shangi had something he wanted to say, but didn't say it. The world is not short of geniuses, but it is short of lucky geniuses. Although Fatty Sue's talent is average, he is very lucky to have met Shangi, a good boss who is kind to him. When times are good, the world works together. When times are bad, the hero is not free. Luck is also part of talent and strength. After training him up to Epsilon, and with 3 years of exposure to Shangi, as long as he is not too stupid, he will not be weak. Perhaps if you had Fatty Sue carrying a 9-toothed pitchfork, he would have had a hard time fighting close-up with others. But a mutant of the ice and snow system will never be bad at controlling the field. Let's go home." Shangi waved his hand, the Golden Front sounded its whistle, and Captain Old Tian immediately ordered the sailors to set sail and turn around. This battle quickly spread all over the world. The Knights of the Round Table acted with integrity, and King Arthur was a proud man who didn't bother to hide the results of the battle. Losing is losing, and losing to a stronger opponent is also a kind of glory. So the whole world knows that from now on, the title of the world's #1 mutant team has changed hands. Everyone knows that in Huashu Kingdom, there is a powerful mutant called Chaos in Tianhai City, which is not affiliated with any regional organization and is independent of the secular world. The mutants under his command are all powerful, extraordinary, and fierce as ghosts and gods. Even for Tianhai City, a mysterious place where many forces have failed, they have a half-joking, half-respectful title, the Emperor of the East Sea City. Northern Africa. This is the warmest region in the world. Crossing the equator, the climate is pleasant in the end times. This land is home to a very complex civilization, from ancient primitive tribes to modern countries. On one continent, you can glimpse the development of human history over thousands of years. And the most developed country must be the country located in northern Africa near the Eurasian continent. The KG Kingdom is the largest country in post-apocalyptic North Africa. With a population of 20 million, it is even comparable to some world powers. The 3 years since the end of the world have passed under the rule of the supreme leader of the KG Kingdom, Commander Ken Sane. This country is extremely mysterious, because after Commander Sane's expedition to Rome failed, he simply sealed off the entire country and refused to communicate with the outside world. However, it must be admitted that in the several wars against the invasion of the Northern Kingdom, Commander Sane led the KG National Army to fight very well. For a long time afterwards, the outside world had no way of obtaining information about this land, and no idea what kind of life the people there led. It seemed to have become a world apart. But the people of the KG Kingdom were very happy. They believed that only those living on the African continent were the chosen people in the end times. And the people of the KG Kingdom were the chosen of the chosen, because they were fortunate enough to be led by a great figure. 2 o'clock in the morning. It is dark, as if a huge black curtain has fallen over the sky of the KG Kingdom. At this moment of complete silence, the sound of a telephone comes from one of the rooms in an apartment building in Prison City, the capital of the KG Kingdom. Prison City, the capital of the KG Kingdom, has the best living environment in all of North Africa. Even in the coldest winter, the temperature can remain above -30 degrees Celsius. Even in the summer, people can go out and move around freely by simply wearing thick down jackets. The houses here are even more expensive per square meter. No, they are priced out of the market. Money is useless at this time, and only those who have made outstanding contributions to the KG Kingdom and their relatives can live here. And it is clear that the people living in this apartment building are not ordinary. The phone woke up the owner of the room, a man with long hair and an Asian face, who hurriedly got out of bed to answer the phone. In his haste, he didn't even put on his shoes, and his bare feet made a dangerous sound on the marble floor, which was sure to cause him to fall ill. But he didn't care about that. The phone was a very precious thing in this country, too. North Africa was already backward compared to other countries in the civilized world, and after the end of the world, infrastructure construction had almost come to a halt. That was why they used telephones from half a century ago as a means of transportation, and not everyone could install such equipment in their homes. It's not for ordinary people to use, and ordinary people don't use the phone to communicate. There are only 3 possibilities when you get a phone call at a time like this. First, you'll be investigated by a special department of the KG Kingdom and summoned for interrogation by the secret military police. This means you may have committed an intolerable offense, and something big is bound to happen. Second, you'll be summoned by the Commander-in-Chief of the KG Kingdom, Commander Sane. Third, there is a war in the KG Kingdom. Everyone must mobilize and take all the weapons they can use to fight the enemy. Yet the man who answered the phone had a relaxed expression on his face. He was very sure that he had received the call for the second reason. Because some time ago, he had just entered Commander Sane's kitchen and cooked him a delicious Chinese dish of fried rice with eggs, which was appreciated by Commander Sane. Commander Sane loves Chinese food, and there aren't many authentic Chinese people in North Africa. Coincidentally, the man who answered the phone, Hian Jesu, came to KG Kingdom 3 years ago with the company's engineering team to participate in an international cooperation project. A former chef, he has excellent skills. He never expected the surprise to come so soon. In KG Kingdom, everyone knows that once you gain the admiration of Commander Sane, you will certainly be able to rise quickly and become someone important. A deep male voice came over the phone. Hian Jesu, we will be downstairs in front of your house in 5 minutes. Commander Sane wants to see you. Yes. Hian Jesu's body trembled with excitement. He was grateful that the goddess of fortune had taken pity on him. He had been given the opportunity to change his fate in the midst of the apocalypse, when he had thought he would die at any moment. I'll be right there. Hian Jesu switched on the light and hurriedly got dressed. In the room, his wife Lee Sung-mi on the bed was also awakened by his movements. She raised her upper body, rubbed her bleary eyes, and asked, "What's wrong? Where are you going in the middle of the night?" Hian Jesu was excited as he dressed and said to his beautiful wife, "This is confidential. I can't tell you until I get back." His face was full of pride. This was the inner joy of a husband who was about to rise to great heights. Lee Sung-mi is very beautiful. She and Hian Jesu are boyfriend and girlfriend, but at this time, there is no need to get a marriage certificate. The two simply became husband and wife in the celebration of their friends. When Hian Jesu first came to North Africa as a key employee of the company, she also came with him. Unexpectedly, she stayed for 3 years. As a woman, she is full of the soft beauty of an Oriental woman, which is not common in North Africa. Hearing Hian Jesu's words, Lee Sung-mi was confused. But Hian Jesu had already hurriedly dressed and wrapped himself up tightly before going out. When he arrived downstairs, Hian Jesu paced back and forth in the cold night wind. After waiting for a short while, 2 blinding lights appeared in the darkness. A light military armored vehicle pulled up in front of him. The doors opened at the back, revealing a dark and serious face. Hian Jesu couldn't help but swallow as he saw the serious look on the officer's face. "Hian Jesu, is that right?" the officer asked coldly. Hian Jesu nodded hurriedly, and the officer told him to get in the car. All the way there, Hian Jesu didn't say a word, because at this moment his heart was already incredibly excited. The fame and fortune that he was about to get made him start to have beautiful fantasies about the future. But when he thought about the person he was about to meet next, the supreme leader of the KG kingdom, his heart couldn't help but become nervous. Although it was dark, the car was surrounded by curtains, and there was a curtain between the front and back seats, so he couldn't see where he was going at all. In this oppressive atmosphere, Hian Jesu just felt that the car had been driving for a long, long time. He didn't dare ask anything. It wasn't until he was about to fall asleep that he suddenly felt the car shake violently, as if it had climbed a huge steep slope. But soon, he knew where he was. Because the sound of waves came from his ears. There were 2 large rivers near Prison that connected to the sea to the north, so they weren't frozen over very badly at the moment. He was sure he was on top of one of the larger rivers. Along the way, the dark-faced officer had been sitting next to him, his face as expressionless as if it had really been made of black iron. Hian Jesu didn't dare ask any more questions. After about another half hour, there was suddenly a sound of conversation in his ear. Dong! A loud noise, and the car body trembled slightly. They had arrived at the shore. The officer told Hian Jesu to get out of the car. When he opened the car doors, the bright white light outside was blinding. Hian Jesu had a hard time adjusting to the light outside, and only then did he realize that he had arrived on an island by a large river. It was clearly dark night, but the place was decorated with all kinds of colorful neon lights, as bright as day. For a moment, Hian Jesu was stunned. In the 3 years since the end of the world, even though he had lived in the capital of Prison, he had never seen such a sight. Electricity was an extraordinary luxury at this time, and the neon lights arranged on various buildings in front of him were like a miniature Tianhai city. And at the dock where they were docked, there were already other boats ashore. People of all shapes and colors walked down from them, some in military uniforms, some in clothing made of precious animal fur. But soon, Hian Jesu's gaze was drawn to a boat in the distance that was clearly different. Because the people walking down from it were colorful and beautiful. Anyone who didn't know would think the Olympics were being held there, because there were people of all races. They were wrapped in thick coats, but their slender legs were still visible underneath. Even in the low temperatures of dozens of below 0 degrees, Hian Jesu admired their physical fitness. Just as Hian Jesu was lost in thought, the officer next to him touched his arm. Hian Jesu came back to his senses and quickly lowered his head in a submissive manner. The officer said, "You are very lucky to be able to attend Commander Sane's banquet. In order not to do anything inappropriate, you must stay close to me at all times. I will tell you what to do." Hian Jesu thanked him repeatedly and took the opportunity to ask the officer his name. The other person was clearly an extraordinary figure, as evidenced by the rank of lieutenant colonel on his shoulders. In a very indifferent tone, he told him that his name was Choi Jae, and that he was the captain of special operations of Commander Sain's personal guard. Hian Jesu followed Lieutenant Colonel Choi Jae closely, worried about making a mistake. The people around them were presumably all guests of Commander Sain, and at this thought, Hian Jesu became even more low-key. He knew that he had been specially invited to the dinner because he was good at Chinese cooking. The others, he assumed, were all upper-class people from the KG kingdom. Walking along the resplendent path, they arrived at the luxurious villa where the commander lived. A huge European-style building, including a huge courtyard, completely covered by a glass compartment. It was cold outside like winter, but once inside, it was warm like early summer in May. Hian Jesu felt like his whole body was going to burst into flames. Fortunately, Choi Jae was experienced and took him to undergo an inspection first. He stripped naked in a room and then, almost ashamed, accepted the staff's inspection from head to toe. After the inspection, Hian Jesu took off most of his thick clothes, but fortunately, he was wearing presentable clothes underneath in order to keep warm, so he didn't look disheveled. After passing this test, Choi Jae told him that he could go and meet Commander Sain. Hian Jesu was extremely excited inside. He took a few deep breaths, knowing that the time had come to change his destiny. Choi Jae led him all the way to the main hall of the villa. As soon as the doors opened, Hian Jesu felt as if he had returned to the world before the end of the world, to the most prosperous Grand Hotel in Tianhai City. The inside was resplendent with gold and silver, and Hian Jesu was transfixed for a long time. Everywhere was resplendent with gold, and the white jade-like walls and pillars were decorated with various beautiful patterns in gold. In the center of the banquet were many exquisite foods and a large quantity of various drinks. Commander Sain did not appear, however, and everyone else waited for him to arrive before they dared to start the banquet. Hian Jesu did not have to wait long. After about 20 minutes, the main doors to the banquet hall opened. However, it was not Commander Sain who entered, but a small white dog. It walked lightly into the banquet hall with small, quick steps, its fur snow-white and without a speck of dust. Everyone hurriedly and respectfully avoided it, for fear of causing it to bump into anything. Hian Jesu was still wondering in his heart why even a dog could make people so respectful. Soon he had his answer. A tall, thin man with long hair walked into the banquet hall. He looked tall, but perhaps that was because he was thin. His long hair was parted down the middle and fell to his shoulders on either side. His face didn't show much expression, if anything at all, save for a certain pattern to everything. This was the supreme ruler of the KG kingdom, Commander Ken Sain. This was Hian Jesu's first time seeing his true appearance. He had expected him to be a pot-bellied, short, middle-aged man. However, he had never imagined that he would be so energetic and even somewhat handsome. There were so many people in the banquet hall, and they all tensed up the moment they saw him, but he acted as if he hadn't seen anyone, and quickly chased after the lower Pomeranian and hurried over. "Nami, my little treasure. Stop running and come to your father's arms." Commander Sain ignored everyone and walked straight over to him, picking up the puppy in his arms. He looked at the Pomeranian, his eyes full of affection, and held it in his arms, stroking it gently. A waiter came over next to him and handed him a glass of foreign wine on a gold tray. He took it and drained half the glass in one go. Hian Jesu felt that his drinking motion was a bit rude, not at all as elegant as he had imagined. Then the party began. Commander Sain walked to the center of the banquet hall, where a long table was set up. He sat down lazily at the front and then raised his glass to the crowd. At this time, a waiter came up to everyone's side, holding a gold tray in his hands, with a glass of wine on it. Hian Jesu also had a glass in front of him, so he quickly took it with both hands. Commander Sain raised his glass and shouted, "Today, you must have fun when you come here. If you are not drunk, you are not allowed to leave." The crowd also quickly raised their glasses. "Yes, Commander." The feast began. Hian Jesu took a sip. It was a kind of foreign wine that he didn't know the name of. It seemed very high level, but it had a strong and spicy taste, and it didn't seem like a particularly good drink. Choi Jae whispered in his ear, "After you finish drinking, you can take this glass home and keep it." Hian Jesu's eyes were a little confused, but he nodded obediently. Seeing that this was a greenhorn who had come for the first time and knew nothing, Choi Jae also told him the rules for attending Commander Sane's banquet. Everyone here can take home the glass after drinking. Then at home, there will be a special cabinet to hold it. Those who have wine glasses at home are called honored guests, representing those who have been honored by Commander Sane's favor. These people are treated with the utmost respect in the Keiji kingdom. The more such wine glasses there are in a home, the greater the respect. Hian Jesu now also understood the value of this wine glass, so he was even more careful when drinking. Commander Sane liked to drink, and when he drank, he did so in a heroic manner, as if gulping down wine. He seemed to have forgotten Hian Jesu, the young Chinese chef, who had been called over. After a while, Choi Jae came over and said to him, "The commander wants you." Hian Jesu was extremely nervous, his palms sweating. He hurried over. Commander Sane was sitting in a chair, looking up at him indifferently. "You're the cook who made Chinese food before?" Before Hian Jesu could say anything, Commander Sane's face suddenly changed, and he said coldly, "You're not an agent sent by another country, are you? If I find out you're up to no good, I'll execute you immediately." Hian Jesu froze in place, feeling cold all over and dizzy. The extreme panic almost made him collapse where he stood. Seeing his frightened expression, Commander Sane suddenly burst out laughing, pointing at him and saying, "You look so funny." Hian Jesu's mind cleared a little, and he smiled awkwardly. Later, Choi Jae told him that this was Commander Sane's dark humor. He often liked to tease the people around him like this and watch them make a fool of themselves. However, if you behave better during these times, Commander Sane will also look upon you with favor. Choi Jae added later, "If it were me, I would say that even if I died, I would transform into a ghost and continue to serve you, Commander." Commander Sane did not make things difficult for Hian Jesu, and instead raised his glass towards him and drank a toast with him. "Your Chinese food is very good and to my liking. Come to the official residence in the future and cook for me exclusively. You must have a good time today," he said, standing up and patting Hian Jesu on the shoulder. This action made Hian Jesu cry directly on the spot, because such an honor was enough to remember for the rest of his life.